My name is Nella, and I'm 29 years old. I thought I had the perfect life with my husband Michael. 7 months pregnant with our first child, I was excited to start our family. Then one day, I walked into his office and found him with another woman. When she saw me, she didn't run or hide. Instead, she kicked me right in my pregnant belly. As I collapsed in pain, fearing for my baby's life, I never imagined what would happen next. She would soon be the one begging for mercy. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to find strength during your darkest moment. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this story ends. I had always been a career-focused woman. After graduating with honours in interior design, I built a successful business transforming spaces for high-end clients. My work had been featured in several home design magazines, and I had even been approached about hosting a TV segment on a local lifestyle show. I was proud of what I had accomplished on my own, but I was ready to scale back when we found out about the pregnancy. Michael and I met 5 years ago at a charity gala. I was there designing the event space, and he was representing his law firm as a sponsor. The moment he walked in, the entire room seemed to shift. He had this commanding presence that drew people to him naturally, tall with dark hair, perfectly styled, and wearing a suit that I could tell was custom-made. He looked like he had stepped out of a magazine. But it wasn't just his appearance that caught my attention. It was his confidence, his easy laugh, and the way he seemed genuinely interested in everyone he spoke to. When he approached me to compliment the design, I felt an immediate connection. We talked for hours that night, and by the end of the evening he had asked me to dinner. Our romance was a whirlwind. Within 6 months we were talking about marriage. At 8 months he proposed during a surprise weekend getaway to Napa Valley. By our first anniversary, we were exchanging vows in an elegant ceremony attended by 200 guests. Michael was a corporate lawyer at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. His career was on a fast track to making partner, and his income allowed us to purchase a beautiful colonial-style house in an exclusive neighbourhood. I converted one of the spare bedrooms into my home office, and together we created our dream home. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. We both wanted children, and we decided to start trying after our second anniversary. I was 37 weeks along when the incident happened, but getting pregnant hadn't been easy. After 2 years of trying fertility tests and one early miscarriage that left me heartbroken, we finally received the news we had been waiting for. I still remember the look on Michael's face when I showed him the positive pregnancy test. He lifted me off my feet and spun me around, tears in his eyes, as he promised to be the best father our child could ever want. The pregnancy became my new project. I designed the most beautiful nursery with a woodland theme featuring hand-painted murals and custom furniture. I read every parenting book I could find, joined prenatal yoga classes, and changed my diet completely to give our baby the best start in life. Michael seemed just as excited, attending every doctor's appointment, downloading pregnancy apps to track the baby's development, and talking to my belly every night before we went to sleep. But around my 5th month of pregnancy, things started to change. Michael began working later and later. He would come home exhausted, barely able to maintain a conversation before retreating to his home office. Weekend plans were cancelled due to sudden work emergencies. Our intimate moments became rare, and when I tried to talk to him about it, he blamed a particularly demanding case that required his complete attention. "Once this case is settled, things will go back to normal," he promised, kissing my forehead dismissively before turning away. "The firm is counting on me. You understand, right?" And I did understand, or at least I thought I did. Michael had always been ambitious, and I had always supported his career. So I ignored the red flags, dismissed the growing distance between us, and focused on preparing for our baby. My sister Emma noticed the change in Michael first. During one of our weekly lunch dates, she carefully broached the subject. "Is everything okay with you and Michael?" she asked, stirring her coffee. "You hardly mention him anymore except to say he's working." "He's just busy. I defended automatically. This case is really important for his career. Emma raised an eyebrow. Nella, you're 7 months pregnant. You should be his priority right now. I changed the subject quickly, unwilling to admit that Emma's concerns mirrored my own unspoken worries. My best friend Diane was less subtle when I cancelled our spa day because Michael had promised to be home that weekend. He's cancelling on you more than he's showing up, she pointed out bluntly. That's not normal even for a lawyer with a big case. You don't understand the pressure he's under, I replied, though the defence felt hollow even to my own ears. To complicate matters further, my pregnancy hadn't been easy. At 20 weeks, I was diagnosed with placenta previa, a condition that required extra monitoring and restricted activity. My doctor had advised me to reduce stress and avoid strenuous tasks, which made Michael's increasing absence even more difficult to manage. His parents, who lived in a neighbouring state, called frequently to check on me, but couldn't visit often due to his father's health issues. I found myself increasingly relying on Emma and Diane for the support I had expected from my husband. Looking back, I should have seen what was happening. All the signs were there, but sometimes when you love someone, you see what you want to see, not what's actually in front of you. By the time I reached 7 months, my morning sickness had finally subsided and I was feeling more energetic than I had in weeks. The baby was kicking regularly, a reassuring reminder of the life growing inside me. Despite the complications, my doctor was cautiously optimistic about the remainder of my pregnancy. The placenta had partially moved away from the cervix, reducing some of the risks, though I was still considered high risk. On that fateful Wednesday, I woke up feeling particularly good. Michael had already left for work as usual, but he had sent a text saying he was looking forward to our dinner plans that evening. It was our 5th wedding anniversary, and he had promised to make it special. Feeling hopeful that we might finally reconnect, I decided to surprise him with lunch from Antonio's, the Italian restaurant, where we had our first date. I spent the morning getting ready, putting extra effort into my appearance, despite my unwieldy baby bump. I wore a blue maternity dress that Michael had once complimented applied makeup for the first time in weeks, and even managed to style my hair in loose waves the way he liked. Looking in the mirror, I felt a glimmer of my old confidence returning. Maybe this small gesture would remind Michael of the couple we used to be. Antonio himself greeted me when I arrived at the restaurant. He fussed over my pregnant belly and insisted on adding extra breadsticks and a slice of tiramisu for the bambino. With the carefully packed lunch in hand, I drove to Michael's office building, a sleek high-rise in the financial district. I had visited many times before and knew most of the staff by name. As soon as I stepped off the elevator onto the firm's floor, something felt off. Jessica, the usually friendly receptionist, looked startled when she saw me. Her smile seemed forced as she greeted me. "Nella, what a surprise! We weren't expecting you today." "I thought I'd surprise Michael with lunch," I explained, holding up the bag from Antonio's. "Is he in?" Jessica's eyes darted to the side. "He's, in a meeting right now." As I waited in the reception area, I noticed hushed conversations and strange glances from passing staff members. One junior associate quickly averted his eyes when I caught him staring. Another whispered something to her colleague while looking in my direction. The knot in my stomach grew tighter with each passing minute. After 20 minutes of waiting, I approached Jessica's desk again. "How much longer do you think he'll be?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "The food is getting cold." Jessica looked genuinely uncomfortable now. "I'm not sure, Nella. It's an important meeting." "Who's he meeting with?" I pressed, unable to shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Jessica hesitated. "Samantha Davis," she finally admitted, the new associate. The name was vaguely familiar. Michael had mentioned her a few times, always in passing. A recent law school graduate, top of her class, a promising addition to the firm. He had never indicated that they worked closely together. "I'll just wait in his office," I decided impulsively. "I can set up lunch as a surprise for when he's done." "Nella, I don't think..." Jessica began half rising from her chair, but I was already moving down the hallway toward Michael's corner office. As I approached, I heard sounds from behind the door, which was slightly ajar. A woman's laugh, low and intimate. Then Michael's voice, too quiet for me to make out the words, but with an unmistakable tone that I hadn't heard directed at me in months. My heart pounding, I pushed the door open wider. The scene before me seemed to unfold in slow motion. Michael was seated in his large leather chair, his tie loosened, hair dishevelled, and on his lap, her arms wrapped around his neck, was a woman I assumed was Samantha. Young, beautiful, in a tight pencil skirt that was pushed up to her thighs. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice me immediately. When they finally did, Michael's face transformed from passionate to horrified in an instant. He practically pushed Samantha off his lap, standing so quickly that papers scattered from his desk. "Nella." His voice was strangled. "What are you doing here?" The woman. Samantha didn't look embarrassed or apologetic. Instead, she straightened her skirt with deliberate slowness, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. As she assessed me from head to toe, her gaze lingering on my pregnant belly with something like contempt. In that moment, my entire world collapsed around me. The bag from Antonio's slipped from my fingers, containers spilling across the polished floor of Michael's office. The smell of garlic and tomato sauce filled the air as pasta spread across expensive leather shoes and designer heels. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice breaking. Then, finding my strength, I screamed, "How could you do this to me, to us?" My hand instinctively moved to protect my belly, our child, as tears streamed down my face. Michael stepped toward me, hands raised placatingly. "Nella, baby, this isn't what it looks like. We were just discussing a case and things got—" "I can explain everything." The pathetic lie only fueled my rage. "Discussing a case on your lap with her tongue down your throat. Do you think I'm stupid?" Samantha smoothed her hair, watching our exchange with an almost clinical detachment. When she finally spoke, her voice was cool and controlled. "You should have called before coming here. This is a professional environment." Her audacity left me momentarily speechless. This woman had just been caught with my husband, and she was acting as if I was the one who had done something wrong. "Michael," I turned to him, searching for any sign of the man I had married. "Please tell me this is the first time. Tell me this is just a horrible mistake." His silence was damning. "It's not the first time," Samantha answered for him, a triumphant edge to her voice. "Michael and I have history that predates you. We were together before he met you, and we've been together since shortly after your wedding. He never loved you, Nella. You were just convenient good for his image at the firm. The pretty wife who designed his office, hosted his dinner parties, carried his child." She stepped closer, her eyes glittering with malice. "But he always came back to me. Always." Each word was like a physical blow. I looked to Michael, silently begging him to contradict her, but he just stood there, pale and mute. "Is it true?" I demanded. "Have you been with her all this time?" Michael ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. "Nella, it's complicated. Samantha and I dated in law school. We broke up when she moved abroad for a year. Then I met you and everything happened so fast. I did love you. I still do, but Samantha came back and—" "It's complicated." "Complicated?" I echoed, disbelief washing over me. "I'm 7 months pregnant with your child. There's nothing complicated about betraying your pregnant wife." Samantha laughed, the sound brittle and cruel. "The pregnancy was your idea, not his. You trapped him with it. He told me all about how you pressured him, how you were desperate for a baby, even though he wasn't ready. This was too much. The 2 years of trying the fertility treatments, the heartbreak of our miscarriage, all reframed as my manipulation. Michael had been the one to suggest we start trying. He had held me as I cried each month when my period came. promised me we would have our family. That's not true, I said, my voice shaking with fury and hurt. Michael, tell her that's not true. But Michael just looked at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. In that moment of devastating clarity, I realized I didn't know this man at all. The Michael I thought I had married was a fiction, a carefully constructed facade hiding the weak, duplicitous person standing before me. 5 years of marriage built on lies. I want a divorce. I said the words coming from somewhere deep inside me, a place of sudden, ice-cold resolve. I never want to see you again. That's when Samantha's demeanor changed completely. The cool composure cracked, revealing a flash of pure rage. You don't get to decide that, she hissed, stepping toward me. We had a plan. Once the baby came, he was going to leave you. We were going to be together officially. You don't get to walk in here and ruin everything. Samantha, don't, Michael warned, finally seeming to realize the situation was spiraling out of control. But she wasn't listening. She advanced on me, her face contorted with anger. You and your baby were the only things standing in our way. Do you know how hard it's been watching him play house with you, having to keep our relationship hidden because you were so fragile, so needy? I backed away, alarmed by the hatred in her eyes. Stay away from me. Or what? She taunted. You'll cry to Michael, run to your perfect house and wait for him to choose you. He never will. He never wanted this baby. He never wanted you. It happened so fast. One moment, she was inches from my face, spewing venom, and the next, she had pulled back and kicked me with full force, her pointed heel connecting directly with my pregnant belly. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. I doubled over, a scream tearing from my throat as I clutched my stomach. Something felt terribly wrong inside me. A warm wetness spread between my legs. Nella! Michael shouted, finally moving toward me. I collapsed to my knees, unable to stand, as the pain radiated through my abdomen. The baby! I gasped. Something's wrong with the baby! The office door burst open as several staff members rushed in, drawn by the commotion. Jessica was at the front, her face pale with shock. Call 911! She shouted over her shoulder before kneeling beside me. Nella, try not to move! Through a haze of pain, I was dimly aware of Samantha backing away, her expression shifting from rage to the first flickers of fear as she realized what she had done. She attacked me, Samantha said quickly. I was defending myself. Michael was on his phone, his voice urgent as he spoke to emergency services. When he tried to touch my shoulder, I flinched away. Don't touch me, I managed through clenched teeth. Don't ever touch me again. The pain intensified and I could feel myself starting to lose consciousness. The last thing I heard before everything went black was Samantha's cold voice saying, maybe now he can be with me without your baggage. Then darkness claimed me. Beeping machines pulled me back to consciousness. The sterile smell of antiseptic and the rhythmic sound of medical equipment told me I was in a hospital before I even opened my eyes. When I did, the harsh fluorescent lights made me wince. My sister Emma's worried face swam into view. Nella, can you hear me? She's awake, she called to someone outside my field of vision. Memories flooded back in a rush. Michael, Samantha, the kick, my baby. The baby. I gasped, my hands flying to my stomach, only to find it significantly smaller than it had been. Panic seized me. Where's my baby? What happened to my baby? A doctor appeared at my bedside, his expression serious, but not grave. Mrs. Reynolds, I'm Dr. Chen. You suffered a placental abruption caused by blunt force trauma to your abdomen. We had to perform an emergency C-section while you were unconscious. My baby, I repeated, my voice breaking. You have a daughter, he said gently. She's premature at 30 weeks, so she's in the NICU right now. She's very small, just under 3 pounds, and she's having some difficulty breathing on her own, but she's fighting hard. Relief and fear warred within me. My baby was alive, but not safe yet. When can I see her? As soon as you're stable enough to be moved. You lost a significant amount of blood, and the emergency surgery was complex. We need to monitor you for at least 24 hours. I tried to sit up, ignoring the sharp pain from my incision. I need to see her now. I need to be with my daughter. Emma gently pushed me back against the pillows. Nella, please. You have to take care of yourself to take care of her. She's in good hands. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I drifted in and out of consciousness, my body struggling to recover from both the trauma and the surgery. Emma remained by my side, updating me on my daughter's condition whenever I woke. She had been named Lily, a name Michael and I had discussed but never formally decided on. Emma had provided it when the nurses asked, knowing it was my favourite. "Michael's been trying to see you," Emma told me during one of my lucid periods. I told him to go to hell. "Good," I whispered, the betrayal still a fresh wound. "I don't want to see him. Ever." "The police were here too," she continued. "That woman Samantha, she's been arrested for assault. They want to take your statement when you're able." The thought of reliving the attack made me feel physically ill, but I nodded. I would do whatever was necessary to ensure Samantha faced consequences for what she had done to my child. On my second day in the hospital, a nurse came to take me to the NICU. The journey through the hospital corridors in a wheelchair was painful, every bump sending jolts of agony through my abdomen, but nothing could have kept me from my daughter. The NICU was quiet except for the gentle humming of machines. The nurse wheeled me to a small incubator where my daughter lay so tiny she barely looked real. Tubes and wires connected her to monitors and breathing apparatus. Her skin was nearly translucent, her chest rising and falling with each assisted breath. She was the most beautiful, fragile thing I had ever seen. "Can I touch her?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. The nurse nodded, showing me how to place my hands through the openings in the incubator. With infinite care, I touched my daughter's hand for the first time. Her fingers, impossibly small, reflexively curled around my fingertip. "Hi, Lily," I whispered. "I'm your mum. I'm right here and I'm not going anywhere. We're going to get through this together." Over the next few weeks, I recovered slowly while Lily fought her own battles. I was discharged after 5 days, but refused to leave the hospital, instead taking up residence in the parents' room adjacent to the NICU. I spent every possible moment with Lily, talking to her, singing to her, reading to her from children's books Emma brought from home. The NICU nurses became my family, especially Marlene, an older nurse with 30 years of experience who took a special interest in Lily and me. She taught me how to perform kangaroo care, holding Lily against my skin to regulate her temperature and strengthen our bond. She celebrated every milestone with me. The first time Lily breathed without assistance for a full minute, the first ounce she gained, the first time she opened her eyes and seemed to focus on my face. Michael continued his attempts to see us. He sent flowers that I had Emma throw away. He wrote notes that I tore up unread. When he tried to visit the NICU claiming his rights as the father, I had the hospital security enforce my wishes to keep him away. I learned from Emma that he was telling anyone who would listen that he had been manipulated by Samantha, that their relationship had been brief and meaningless, that he wanted to reconcile with me and be a family. "He's trying to save his reputation at the firm," Emma explained. "The partners are furious about the scandal. Several clients have threatened to leave. I didn't care about Michael's career or his reputation. My entire focus was on Lily, who developed an infection in her 3rd week of life that sent her fragile system into crisis. I spent 72 sleepless hours by her incubator, praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore, bargaining with the universe for my daughter's life. "Please," I whispered to Lily, as her tiny body fought the infection machines beeping ominously around us. "Please stay with me. You're all I have now. I can't lose you too." On the fourth day, Lily's condition stabilized. The infection began to respond to antibiotics, and her oxygen levels improved. Marlene found me slumped in a chair beside the incubator, physically and emotionally exhausted. "She's a fighter, your little girl," she said, helping me to a more comfortable position, just like her mama. It was the first time anyone had called me a fighter, and it struck me that perhaps I was. I had survived betrayal, physical assault, and the near loss of my child. I was still standing, still fighting, and it was time to fight, not just for Lily's life, but for justice. Once Lily was out of immediate danger, I was able to focus on the legal aspects of my situation. Emma had already contacted a friend who recommended Vivian Reed, a formidable attorney, known for her aggressive approach to cases involving domestic violence and assault. When Vivian visited me in the hospital, I was immediately impressed by her no-nonsense attitude. "We have a strong case," she explained, reviewing the notes she had already compiled. "The attack was witnessed by multiple people, and the security cameras in the office captured the entire incident. Samantha is currently out on bail, but she's facing serious charges." "What about Michael?" I asked, my voice hardening at the mention of my husband's name. Vivian's expression was grim. "Legally, he didn't commit the assault, but we can make a case that he created the conditions for it. More importantly, I think we should look deeper into his relationship with Samantha. Something doesn't add up." She was right. With Emma's help, I began to gather evidence. On our shared iPad at home, Emma discovered messages between Michael and Samantha dating back to our engagement. The communication was sporadic at first, becoming more frequent after our wedding. There were explicit photos, declarations of love, and countless rendezvous planned during times when Michael had told me he was working late. Most damning of all were the financial records Emma found in Michael's home office. He had been buying Samantha expensive gifts for years. Jewelry, designer clothes, even helping with the down payment on her condo. The amounts were substantial, far more than Michael's generous, but not unlimited salary could explain. "I think he's been embezzling from the firm," Emma said, showing me the records. "The timing of these large withdrawals coincides with client settlements." This information was passed to Vivian, who brought it to the attention of Michael's firm. They launched an internal investigation, freezing Michael's accounts and placing him on administrative leave. Meanwhile, Jessica, the receptionist who had been so uncomfortable when I arrived at the office that day, came forward with her own evidence. She had documented Michael's inappropriate behavior toward female staff for months, reporting it to HR, only to have her complaints buried. She had emails, text messages, and a detailed log of incidents involving both Michael and Samantha. "They were a team," Jessica explained during a meeting with Vivian. "Michael would target new associates or paralegals, charm them, promise them opportunities. Samantha would befriend them, gain their trust. If the women rebuffed Michael or threatened to report him, Samantha would intimidate them into silence. I've seen her threaten to ruin careers, spread rumours, even physical intimidation in one case." This pattern of behaviour painted a disturbing picture of both Michael and Samantha. Further investigation revealed that Samantha had a history of violent outbursts. She had been involved in a bar fight 2 years earlier that resulted in community service, and a former roommate had filed a restraining order against her after an argument turned physical. With Vivian's guidance, I filed for divorce and obtained restraining orders against both Michael and Samantha. The divorce proceedings were expedited given the circumstances, with Vivian pushing for full custody of Lily and substantial financial support. Michael's response was desperate. He hired a high-profile attorney and attempted to paint himself as another victim of Samantha's manipulation. He gave tearful interviews to local news outlets claiming he had been trapped in an abusive relationship with Samantha and was now being denied the right to see his daughter. He even started a social media campaign called Reunite Michael with Lily, complete with doctored photos of him holding a baby that wasn't even Lily. I refused to engage with his public relations campaign. Instead, I focused on building my case and on Lily's health. After 6 weeks in the NICU, her condition had improved enough that the doctors began discussing the possibility of discharge. She had nearly doubled her birth weight, was breathing on her own, and had begun to nurse successfully. During this time, I moved in with Emma for safety and support. My own home, once my pride and joy, now felt tainted by Michael's betrayal. Emma's cosy 2-bedroom apartment became our sanctuary, with the second bedroom transformed into a nursery for Lily. The threatening messages began a week before Lily was scheduled to be released. Anonymous texts warning me to drop the charges or else. Photos of me entering the hospital clearly taken by someone following me. A dead flower left on Emma's doorstep with a note, "Premature babies are so fragile." We reported everything to the police and to Vivian. Security cameras were installed at Emma's apartment and a police patrol was assigned to do regular drive-bys. We couldn't prove the threats came from Samantha, but the timing was suspicious, coinciding with her legal team's failed attempt to get her charges reduced. Finally, the day arrived when Lily was strong enough to leave the hospital. At 8 weeks old, she weighed just over 5 pounds and had graduated from all monitoring equipment except for a small oxygen monitor she would need at home for a few more weeks. Marlene helped me prepare for the journey home, giving me last-minute advice and extracting a promise that I would bring Lily back to visit. As Emma drove us to her apartment, with Lily secured in her specially designed car seat for premature infants, I felt a mixture of fear and fierce determination. My child had fought so hard to survive. I would do whatever was necessary to protect her and give her the life she deserved, a life free from the shadow of Michael and Samantha's cruelty. That evening, as I sat rocking Lily in the nursery, Emma had prepared. My sister appeared in the doorway with a strange expression on her face. "There's a police officer here," she said quietly, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. "They want to talk to you about Samantha." The officer, a compassionate woman named Detective Martinez, waited until I had placed Lily in her bassinet before delivering her news. The district attorney has reviewed all the evidence, including the security footage and witness statements. They've upgraded the charges against Samantha Davis to include attempted murder of an unborn child. Given the clear intent shown in the video and her statements before and after the attack, they believe they can make the case stick. A cold sense of justice settled over me. "Good," I said simply. "She tried to kill my daughter. She almost succeeded." Detective Martinez nodded solemnly. "The trial is scheduled to begin in 3 months. You'll need to testify, but the DA is confident. With the evidence we have, Samantha Davis is looking at a significant prison sentence." As the detective left, I returned to Lily's side, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she slept peacefully, unaware of the battles still being fought on her behalf. I made her a silent promise: justice would be served and she would grow up knowing that her mother had the strength to protect her from those who sought to harm her. The courtroom was packed on the first day of Samantha's trial. Media interest in the case had grown as details of the assault and the Michaels' financial impropriety became public. I sat in the front row beside Emma, Diane, and Vivian, who had become both my legal advocate and my friend during the past months. Lily, now 5 months old and thriving, despite her premature birth, was being cared for by Marlene, who had retired from nursing and now helped us part-time. I missed my daughter terribly, but knew this was where I needed to be, facing the woman who had tried to take her from me. Samantha entered the courtroom, flanked by her attorneys, her appearance carefully crafted to project innocence and vulnerability. Gone were the designer clothes and confident stride. Instead, she wore a modest navy suit, minimal makeup, and kept her eyes downcast. It was a stark contrast to the arrogant woman who had kicked my pregnant belly without hesitation. The prosecution presented their case methodically. The security footage from Michael's office was played for the jury, showing the entire confrontation in excruciating detail. Several jurors visibly recoiled when they saw Samantha's deliberate kick and my subsequent collapse. Medical experts testified about the severity of the placental abruption and the life-threatening danger to both Lily and me. Jessica and other staff members from the law firm described the relationship between Michael and Samantha, their inappropriate behavior, and the atmosphere of fear they had created. Financial records revealed that Michael had indeed been embezzling from client accounts, using the money to fund his double life with Samantha. When it was my turn to testify, I approached the witness stand with steady steps, determined to look Samantha in the eye. She avoided my gaze, staring at her hands folded in her lap. The prosecutor guided me through my testimony from my discovery of the affair to the assault and its aftermath. Mrs. Reynolds, he asked, in your own words, can you describe what happened immediately after Ms. Davis kicked you? I took a deep breath. I felt an immediate, excruciating pain. It was like something had torn inside me. I knew instantly that something was wrong with my baby. I collapsed and began bleeding. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was Ms. Davis saying, "Maybe now he can be with me without your baggage." She was referring to my baby, my daughter, as baggage. Samantha's attorney attempted to paint the incident as self-defense, suggesting that I had attacked Samantha out of jealous rage and she had merely pushed me away. This narrative collapsed when the security footage was played again, clearly showing I had made no aggressive moves toward her. Several witnesses, including Jessica, testified that Samantha had been the aggressor. As the evidence mounted against her, Samantha's composed facade began to crack. During a particularly damning testimony from a former friend who described Samantha's obsession with Michael and her history of violence, Samantha stood up and shouted, "She's lying! They're all lying!" Her outburst only served to reinforce the prosecution's characterization of her as volatile and dangerous. Her own attorneys looked dismayed as she was ordered by the judge to control herself or be removed from the courtroom. The defense's case was weak from the start. They called character witnesses who seemed rehearsed and unconvincing. Their medical expert was forced to concede under cross-examination that the kick was the direct cause of the placental abruption that endangered Lily's life. When Samantha took the stand in her own defense, her testimony was a disaster. She contradicted herself repeatedly, alternating between claiming self-defense and insisting she had never kicked me at all, despite the clear video evidence. When pressed by the prosecutor about her comment regarding baggage, she became hostile. "She trapped Michael," Samantha snapped. "She got pregnant on purpose to keep him from being with me. We were supposed to be together. We had plans that included eliminating Mrs. Reynolds's pregnancy," the prosecutor asked calmly. "I didn't mean to hurt the baby." Samantha backpedaled, suddenly aware of how she sounded. I was upset. I wasn't thinking clearly. But the damage was done. Her mask had slipped, revealing the true Samantha, entitled, vindictive and remorseless. The most dramatic moment came when Samantha's attorney, in a desperate attempt to salvage their case, called Michael as a witness. He entered the courtroom looking haggard and diminished a shadow of the confident lawyer I had married. His testimony was meant to support Samantha's claim of self-defense, but under skilled cross-examination, he ended up implicating both himself and Samantha further. "Mr. Reynolds," the prosecutor began, "how long had your relationship with Ms. Davis been ongoing prior to the incident?" Michael shifted uncomfortably. "On and off since before I met my wife." "And did you tell Ms. Davis that you intended to leave your wife once your child was born?" "I may have said something like that," Michael admitted. "Did you also tell Ms. Davis that you never wanted the child your wife was carrying?" Michael's eyes darted to Samantha, then to me, then back to the prosecutor. "It was complicated. I said things I didn't mean." "Mr. Reynolds, are you aware that approximately $2 million is missing from client accounts that you had access to?" The question caught Michael off guard. "I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination," he said. after a whispered consultation with his attorney. By the time closing arguments were presented, Samantha's fate seemed sealed. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning with their verdict, guilty on all counts, including attempted murder of an unborn child, aggravated assault and battery. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for the following week. I was given the opportunity to read a victim impact statement describing the physical and emotional trauma I had endured and the ongoing health challenges Lily faced as a result of her premature birth. My daughter spent the first 2 months of her life fighting to survive. I told the court, my voice steady despite my tears. She still requires specialized medical care and monitoring. She may face developmental delays and health issues throughout her life because of Samantha Davis's deliberate action. When she kicked my pregnant belly, she wasn't just attacking me. She was trying to eliminate a child she saw as an obstacle to her relationship with my husband. That level of callousness deserves the maximum penalty under the law. The judge, a stern woman with decades of experience on the bench, seemed deeply affected by my statement. When she delivered her sentence, her voice was resolute. Samantha Davis, your actions demonstrate a shocking disregard for human life. You deliberately attacked a pregnant woman with the intention of causing harm to her unborn child. The court sentences you to 15 years in prison without the possibility of parole. As the sentence was announced, Samantha collapsed in tears, her carefully constructed facade crumbling completely. "Please," she begged, turning to face me directly for the first time since the trial began. "Please, Nella, tell them it wasn't like that. Tell them I didn't mean it. I have my whole life ahead of me." I met her desperate gaze without flinching. "The mercy is that my daughter survived your attempt to kill her," I replied loud enough for her to hear, but not shouting. "That's all the mercy you deserve." Michael's trial for embezzlement and financial fraud proceeded separately. Without Samantha to support his narrative of being manipulated and faced with overwhelming evidence of his crimes, he accepted a plea deal for a reduced sentence of 8 years. The firm's partners, eager to distance themselves from the scandal, offered me a substantial settlement in exchange for my silence regarding their failure to address Michael's behavior sooner. The case attracted significant media attention, with many outlets framing it as a cautionary tale about workplace relationships and the dangers faced by pregnant women. I received countless messages from women who had experienced similar betrayals, though thankfully few had faced physical violence. In an unexpected development, Michael's parents reached out to me after his sentencing. Unlike their son, they were determined to be part of Lily's life. After careful consideration and several meetings with them, I agreed to allow supervised visits. They had been deceived by Michael too, and they loved their granddaughter unconditionally. From her prison cell, Samantha continued to seek my forgiveness, sending letters that I returned unopened. I had no interest in her remorse, if it was even genuine. My focus remained where it belonged, on my daughter and our future together. 1 year after the attack, Lily and I had settled into a new life that bore little resemblance to the one I had planned with Michael. Using the settlement money from the law firm and the proceeds from selling our marital home, I purchased a charming 3-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood across town. The master bedroom was converted into a playroom for Lily, while I took the smaller bedroom adjacent to the nursery to be close to her at night. Despite her challenging start in life, Lily was thriving. At 15 months old, she was slightly behind the typical developmental milestones for her age, but her doctors were optimistic about her progress. She had inherited my dark curls and Michael's dimples, but her personality was entirely her own, determined, curious, and surprisingly gentle for a toddler. My interior design business had evolved in an unexpected direction. After redesigning our new home with special accommodations for Lily's needs, I began to receive requests from other parents of premature babies or children with medical challenges. I developed a specialty in creating nurseries and children's rooms that were both beautiful and functional, incorporating medical equipment seamlessly into the design. A feature in a parenting magazine brought a flood of new clients, allowing me to work primarily from home while caring for Lily. The emotional healing was slower but steady. I joined a support group for single mothers, finding solidarity and friendship among women who understood the unique challenges I faced. Through the group, I met Marlene's daughter, who ran a foundation for families of NICU babies. Using part of the settlement money, I established a fund specifically to provide support for mothers who had experienced pregnancy trauma, offering financial assistance for medical bills, counselling services, and practical help during NICU stays. My relationship with Marlene had deepened beyond our hospital connection. The retired nurse had become a surrogate grandmother to Lily and a valued friend to me. She provided childcare when I needed to meet with clients and offered the wisdom of her years when I struggled with parenting decisions. Her calm presence was a balm during Lily's occasional health scares, her experienced eye able to distinguish between normal childhood illnesses and those requiring immediate medical attention. It was through Marlene that I reconnected with Daniel, her nephew, who had just moved back to the city after years working abroad as an engineer. We had known each other casually in college, and meeting again at Marlene's birthday dinner sparked an immediate friendship. Daniel was divorced with no children, patient and kind, with a quiet intelligence that put me at ease. He understood my hesitation to date again and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. Over months of coffee meetings that gradually evolved into dinners and weekend outings with Lily, I found myself slowly opening up to the possibility of trusting again. Daniel was everything Michael wasn't: consistent, transparent content, with a simple life focused on genuine connections rather than appearances. When he first kissed me 6 months into our friendship, it felt like a beginning rather than a repetition of past mistakes. "I know you've been through hell," he told me one evening as we sat on my porch swing watching the sunset after Lily had gone to bed. "I don't expect you to just get over that. But I want you to know that I'm here however you need me to be, friend, partner, or something in between. There's no rush." His patience gave me the space to heal at my own pace. With the help of therapy, I had begun to address the trauma of Michael's betrayal and Samantha's attack. I learned to recognize that my hypervigilance around Lily, while understandable, needed to be balanced with allowing her to develop independence. I worked through my trust issues, acknowledging that not everyone would hurt me the way Michael had. The most difficult part of my healing journey was the decision to visit Samantha in prison. It wasn't about forgiveness. I wasn't sure I would ever be able to forgive her completely. It was about closure, about looking her in the eye as a strong woman rather than a victim. The prison visit was arranged through my therapist. Samantha was brought into the visitors' area looking nothing like the polished professional I remembered. Her prison uniform hung loosely on her frame, and without makeup and styling, she appeared older and diminished. Her eyes widened when she saw me, a mix of emotions crossing her face: surprise, shame, hope. "Thank you for coming," she said as she sat across from me at the visitation table. "I didn't think you would." "I'm not here for you," I replied evenly. "I'm here for me, to show myself that you have no power over me or my daughter anymore." Samantha nodded, tears filling her eyes. "How is she, your daughter?" "She's perfect," I said simply, offering no details. Lily's life was not something Samantha had any right to know about. "I think about what I did every day," Samantha said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect you to believe me, but I am truly sorry. I was obsessed with Michael, with the idea of having the life that you had. It consumed me until I couldn't see anything else." I studied her, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity, but saw only a broken woman facing the consequences of her actions. "Your apology doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo the damage you caused." "I know," she acknowledged. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends, even knowing it's not enough." As I left the prison, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Samantha was no longer the terrifying figure who haunted my nightmares. She was just a sad, pathetic woman who had destroyed her own life in pursuit of someone else's. I had survived her worst, and I had built something beautiful from the wreckage. The real healing came not from confronting Samantha, but from the life I created afterward. Each milestone Lily reached, her first word, her first steps, her first day of preschool, was a testament to our resilience. Each genuine connection I formed, with Emma, with Marlene, with Daniel, with the mothers in my support group, restored my faith in human goodness. On Lily's second birthday, surrounded by friends who had become family, I watched my daughter blow out her candles, with Daniel's supportive arm around my waist. The journey from that devastating day in Michael's office to this moment of joy had been arduous and painful. I carried scars, both physical and emotional, that would never completely fade. But I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed. I had learned to trust my instincts, to stand firm in my worth, to fight fiercely for what mattered. Most importantly, I had learned that the capacity to heal is just as innate as the capacity to love. Lily toddled over to me, her face smeared with frosting arms reaching up. As I lifted her into an embrace, feeling her solid weight against my heart, I knew with absolute certainty that we would be okay. Better than okay. We would be magnificent. Have you ever had to find strength in your darkest moment? How did you rebuild your life after betrayal or trauma? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our struggles can be the first step toward healing. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear a message of hope today. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.